Hey there, and welcome into another exciting episode of A for Effort, coming to you with another quality movie review. I'm your host, Matt, and as always, we start off giving thanks to our unofficial sponsor of the podcast, MoviePass. $9.95 a month gets you one movie a day at local cinemas in your area. Check MoviePass.com for theater listings and offer availability. On today's episode, we're going to review a very hyped sequel, Deadpool 2. This movie has had so much hype from the minute they announced they were going to do a sequel. Does it live up to it? In part. My personal opinion, I felt a little underwhelmed after the first viewing. I will admit, I do want to see it again. I do want to go back in and take it in another time in the theaters, but my first initial thoughts is I was a bit underwhelmed. The original was directed by Tim Miller, and it was a 2016 smash hit. No one saw it coming. No one could have predicted the type of movie that the original Deadpool movie was going to be. Ryan Reynolds killed it. He had been waiting years to attempt this movie, and finally, after a lot of back and forth with Fox, it finally got to happen. In 2015, they leaked test footage just to get the hype built for Fox to finally say, okay, let's do it. Then they gave him $60 million. Then right before filming started, they cut their budget to $40 million. And then they went and made an amazing film with that budget. It was absolutely incredible. It was self-referential. The fourth wall breaks were perfect. They called Fox out on their bullshit. Made so much money in the box office that they went ahead and approved a sequel and gave them probably double the budget, $100 million plus, to make the sequel. And you can see the budget value of the second one. Ryan Reynolds returns as Wade Wilson. Maria Baccarin returns as Vanessa. Karan Soni returns as Dopinder. TJ Miller returns as Weasel. Brianna Hildebrand returns as Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Like I said, I was a little underwhelmed by the film. It doesn't mean I didn't like it. It was amazing from top to bottom. It had some really great comedy moments. The comedy was louder, raunchier. I mean, it was just an overall larger scope film from the first one. My issue stems from a plot point that they built from the beginning of the movie. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Don't listen to this without seeing the movie. You've been warned. Vanessa is killed 10 minutes into the movie, prior to the credits. And this action in the film leads the movie down a very heavy-handed, sad plot. And it was not something I was looking toward in this movie. The first movie was their love story, which was quite hilarious, in fact. And it was something you didn't expect in a Deadpool movie. Well, for starters, he has a great murder montage at the beginning. And then he comes home, and it's their anniversary, and she tells him that she wants to try to have a family. Then, the same night, she gets killed. And so, for starters, I know in the comic book, Deadpool has a daughter. They never really prove whether or not it's actually his or not, you know what I mean? So, at least from what I know and what I've read in the comics, I'm not sure that the daughter is actually his. But he does have a daughter. I know that there have been stuff that's very heavy-handed in Deadpool comics, but I didn't think that this was necessary in this movie. It kind of tied the whole plot together because Deadpool and Cable comes from the future where his family had been murdered by Russell, but this just was heavy-handed, and it kind of took me out of the movie. The movie also stars the newcomers Josh Brolin as Cable, Zazie Beetz as Domino, Julianne Dennison as Russell, and he was kind of the antagonist of the film, which I didn't expect. He's a young kid who lives in an orphanage, the Essex Orphanage for Mutants, and they're trying to get rid of mutants, and he's pissed off that he's been basically taken advantage of his whole life and wants to kill everyone in that orphanage. And Cable comes back to stop him from committing his first murder so that he doesn't go down this dark path. Like I said, it was a bit heavy-handed with the death stuff of Vanessa. They tried to lighten it up. The credits were pretty funny because, in the first movie they went through starring God's favorite asshole and a CGI character, a love interest, a gratuitous cameo, all that stuff, right? This one was starring What the Fuck Did They Just Do? Produced by Can't Believe They Just Killed Her. It was trying to lighten it up, but it was still very heavy-handed. This movie was directed by David Leitch, and there's a very funny moment where it says directed by one of the guys that killed John Wick's dog, and I thought that was pretty hilarious. And that's where he comes from. He was one of the stunt coordinators on The Matrix. He became a director, and he directed both John Wick movies. The action scenes were phenomenal, don't get me wrong, so, he definitely can direct action, for sure. The comedy, like I said, was absolutely hilarious. They went bigger with the references. There's a lot of references towards the Marvel Cinematic Universe, namely Hawkeye. He gets a couple of references. At one point, Deadpool's wearing this power dampening collar, and the kid says to him, like, what's wrong with you? He goes, I have cancer. You take away my powers, I'm basically Hawkeye. It was just pretty funny. There were some references towards the DC universe at one point when Cable shows up and Cable starts explaining himself. He says the line, wow, that's really dark. You sure you're not from the DC universe? You know, like that kind of stuff was hilarious. There's a moment, just like the first movie, you know, where he cuts off his hand and you watch his hand grow back. Juggernaut actually is in this movie and he tears Deadpool in half. And you watch Deadpool's legs grow back. And at a certain point, like, he's got baby legs and a baby penis. And it's a big joke. Like, they expanded upon what was funny about the first and tried to implement it into the second one with, you know, make it bigger, make it louder, make it raunchier. And that was hilarious. There's parts of it that were absolutely phenomenal. Recently, I'm part of a group called the Great Mates Group on Facebook, and someone posted something where it was a comic strip by Jim Duggan, who had written Deadpool, and it was where Deadpool helps a young teenager, stops her from committing suicide, and in that he says, you know, I'm crazy and loony myself, and I got all kind of things wrong with me, but there are people that can help you. It might not be me, but there are people, and he takes her to a hospital. So there's stuff like that, very heavy-handed stuff does happen in Deadpool comic books. So I just felt like it was more than what I needed in this movie. Granted, upon a second viewing, maybe that changes, but I still feel like it felt a bit short of the original, and that may change after multiple viewings, but there was just some parts of it that just fell short to me. Even before the movie even started, there was a trailer for this movie called Happy Times Murders. It's like a Muppet movie, very raunchy Muppet movie that had the whole theater rolling, and I couldn't stop laughing when the movie started, and I think maybe there's a chance that I found that funnier than the actual movie itself, to be quite honest. And that may have tainted the movie a bit for me. This movie is epically referential. At one point when Juggernaut shows up, he starts referencing all the different comic books that are famous for Juggernaut's appearances and talking about how he's his hero. And it was really cool to see the Juggernaut. This movie has an epic amount of cameos. Some of the best come with the X-Force scene. There's a scene where he puts together a team for himself to stop Cable, and this is where we introduced to Zazie Beetz, Domino, but we're also introduced to Louis Tan playing Shatterstar, Terry Crews playing Bedlam, Bill Skarsgård playing Zeitgeist, and Rob Delaney playing Peter. And they keep mentioning this one character named the Vanisher, who is just this invisible man who you don't see him ever. And at one point, when they're on the plane getting ready to jump out, an empty parachute jumps out. And this is where the movie gets hilarious. This is one of the funniest parts of the movie to me personally, is because Peter mentions that winds are heavy and that we might miss the target. And well, they all miss the target, except for Zazie Beetz, because her power, Domino's power, is to be lucky. So she immediately can get where she needs to be because of her powers, but the rest of them have horrific deaths because of the wind. The Vanisher gets electrocuted by a power line, and once he appears, it happens to be Brad Pitt, which was a hilarious cameo. Bill Skarsgård, Zeitgeist, gets sent into a wood chipper and he just gets shredded. Shatterstar goes into a helicopter blade and gets shredded. Terry Crews gets run over by a bus. And Rob Delaney, Peter's character, he lands and he's like, yeah, X-Force, we did it, Deadpool. And then he goes to help Zeitgeist and he spits his acid venom on his face and arm and stuff and kills him. A couple other small cameos by Matt Damon and Alan Tudyk. They play two rednecks that are just out in the middle of nowhere having beers when Cable arrives from the future, and he knocks them out and takes their truck. And that was pretty funny as well. I didn't know it was Matt Damon. When I go back and see it again, I'd like to make sure that it was. I knew the one was Alan Tudyk. I could totally tell it was Alan Tudyk. I did not know the other one was Matt Damon. There's another scene where Deadpool goes into the X-Mansion with Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who, props to Fox, introduces her girlfriend Yuki, and they're the first same-sex couple in a Marvel movie or any superhero movie at that. So that was really cool. So he's making the same joke from the first movie about how he never sees any other X-Men. There's got to be a Patrick Stewart or a Charles McAvoy around here somewhere. And it pans the camera around, and the entire current X-Men team is in a room standing behind him, and they slowly shut the door so he can't see them, but we see them, and that it was a pretty hilarious moment, and it was great that they actually put those guys in this movie and kind of made it all that much better. Like I said, there were some great parts with the references and the baby feet, and the comedy aspect of it was right up there with the first. Like, I was laughing hilariously throughout the movie. It just felt heavy-handed to me with some of the plot points about making a family and being part of a family, and you don't have to be a murderer to feel good about yourself. It just wasn't the Deadpool movie I expected. And it's not a bad thing. It was a great movie, and like I said, if I see it more times, one or two more times, maybe my opinion will change. As of right now, it gets an A+. It's not the best superhero movie of the year. I know some people are saying it is, but Black Panther and Infinity War are like right there, like neck and neck for being the best superhero movies of the year, and we're not nowhere near done with Ant-Man and the Wasp coming, and Aquaman coming, Venom coming. Like, there's a chance that maybe those movies are knocked off, but not by Deadpool. I mean, it was great, and there are people saying it's better than Infinity War. I just don't, not for me personally. So that's just my personal opinion. A+ for Deadpool, but that's about it. He killed it. I mean, Ryan Reynolds is absolutely amazing in the character and in the role. Dopinder has some great moments. T.J. Miller was kind of cut out. He was a big part in the first one, but he was kind of cut out. This was they filmed this right around the time he had his sexual assault allegations, so he kind of got cut down to a bare minimum role in this movie. Blind Owl was back, and she had a couple of good moments. The person that to me stole the show and needed more screen time was Zazie Beetz' Domino. She needed more time in this movie for sure. Some other great comedy beats, though, are the post-credit scene. They kind of undo Vanessa's death in the post-credits with time travel, which is cool, which kind of makes the movie a little bit more blah, because it's like, okay, well, and then none of it actually happened because you never met Cable or Domino or even Russell, because there's no point for the movie to happen. You change Vanessa dying, but I mean, it's still a good movie at that. There's no plans to make another one, not unless Disney lets it happen, but I still think it was good nonetheless. But the other two are where it's at. The first one, he goes back in time, and it's just a cut scene from X-Men Origins Wolverine, right when Wolverine sees Deadpool, aka Weapon 11, and all of a sudden they're getting ready to start their showdown. The claws pop, the swords pop, and then all of a sudden Weapon 11 just gets shot in the head, and Deadpool walks in the scene and goes, "Whoo! Thank God we erased that from canon," and it was absolutely hilarious. And then the next one is Ryan Reynolds reading the script to Green Lantern, and he's like, "Man, I finally made the big leagues," and then Deadpool shoots him in the head and said, "You're welcome, Canada," and that was absolutely hilarious. Those two scenes probably stole the movie for me. Those were the best two things to happen in the movie for me personally. There's a lot of Wolverine references as usual, but that one takes the cake for me. It basically erases that version of Deadpool from existence, and that was pretty funny. Overall, I had a good time at this movie, but again, like I said, I keep saying it just didn't live up to the first one for me. So with that, I'm going to end it there. I really, really hope that this can spark conversation. Comment, let me know what you thought of the movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Where do you stand with Deadpool 2? Summer movie season is upon us, so there's going to be a lot of great reviews coming up moving forward. I know it's been a week since I posted my last review. The last movie I seen was Avengers prior to this, but the movies are coming hard and fast over the next few weeks. Solo's next week, and then Upgrade is the week after that, along with Tag, Ocean's 8, Incredibles. I mean, we've got a large list of great movies coming, and I'm excited to review them for you. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Any and all helps this podcast. I've been your host, Matt, and this was another quality movie review from A for Effort.